So, recently there's been a lot of talk about the state of exotic armor in Destiny 2, especially after Bungie has been slowly reworking old exotics that don't get much use each season to bring them back into the limelight. I think at this point a few people, namely Azzacross, have made videos about this before, and I kind of want to weigh in myself, given my background in game design. I want to go over what makes exotics feel exotic and what makes people excited to use them in their builds in the first place. Hey everyone, I'm Rizeki, and welcome to my design analysis of exotic armor in Destiny 2. As always, thanks so much for the click, and if you end up liking what I have to say, definitely give this video a like and hit the subscribe button so I can keep getting videos like this out to you. Exotic armor is a key component to your build in Destiny. Each class has about 40 different exotic armor pieces. I know, that's crazy. I also can't believe it. Each of which has a special effect that applies while wearing it. There's tons of different exotics you could use, but recently it seems as though only a small number actually make their way into builds, and a bunch of them are never used at all, including newly released ones such as Cadmus Ridge Lancecap, Arbor Warden, or Triton Vice. But why is that? Are some just so strong that they overshadow others? Are some effects just plain bad? Is it something else? Well, first let's go over some baseline rules I think establish what makes an exotic interesting, fun, and usable. For one, an exotic must have a unique effect that augments how you play the game. Number two, the effect or perk must synergize well with your class and subclass, and or promote build crafting. 3, the effect or perk should provide interesting emergent gameplay. Emergent gameplay being the combination of game mechanics that leads to a new, sometimes unintended, but very fun gameplay. And 4, the perk should just be easy to understand. If an exotic doesn't hit these requirements, it's probably not hitting the goal of making players interested in choosing it over other exotics. At the end of the day, the goal of the design of any exotic or gun or anything, or gameplay mechanics in general, is to make players want to interact with them. If something isn't fun or interesting, why the heck would you use it? Maybe the effect is too complicated, or the activation requirements are too steep to warrant its use. Let's take a look at an exotic that I think hits these marks for each class. Then we'll look at the opposite, exotics that, well, miss the mark. You'll probably notice that the exotics I pick for each category probably line up with usage stats, and that's really not a coincidence. Exotics that hit all 3 requirements will most likely be picked up by players just for being fun to use, or they lead to a stronger meta playstyle. First, we'll look at the Hunter Exotic Helmet, Assassin's Cowl. If you're an Arc Hunter like I am, chances are you've either used Assassin's Cowl or Liar's Handshake in a build. I'll be focusing on Assassin's Cowl because I think it's really interesting in terms of how it satisfies my rules. So let's get right into it. Assassin's Cowl has a really simple effect. Defeating an enemy with a melee or finisher grants you invisibility and heals you a little bit. In even simpler terms, punch a dude, go invis. Right off the bat, rule 4 is satisfied. Okay, but what about the other rules? We could run down the list from the top. Rule 1, does Assassin's Cowl have a unique effect? Yes! Although there are a number of hunter exotics that interact with invisibility, Assassin's Cowl is the only one that works with all subclasses, not just Void, looking at you, Kepri's Sting. And it's also the only one that procs off unpowered melees and finishers, not just powered melees. For the rest of this analysis, I'm going to assume we're on Arc Hunter since it has the best synergies with this exotic. The general Arc Hunter gameplay loop is to get an enemy low, punch them to kill, refreshing your dodge, then dodging near an enemy, punching again, and rinse and repeating with each kill granting bonus melee damage. If we add Assassin's Cowl into the mix, now we're getting invisibility on each kill and we're getting bonus healing from the exotic perk. We can now weave in and out of combat safely while defeating groups and groups of enemies with ease. We've improved the base Arc Hunter kit by augmenting our gameplay loop with invisibility, essentially turning us into a lightning-powered ninja. But what about emergent gameplay? Well, now as an Arc Hunter, you are working to maintain stacks of combination blow while trying to stay hidden with your invisibility. You have to combine all of your mechanics together to enter a sort of flow state, pun is definitely intended here, where you can seamlessly kill enemies and keep yourself alive in pretty much an infinite loop. Warlocks, it's your turn now. I think we could use Sun Bracers as a great example. The Sun Bracers exotic arms provide you with a period of infinite solar grenade energy after killing an enemy with your powered melee. Again, rule 4 is satisfied with this being a pretty simple description. Kill enemy, gain infinite grenade ammo. Rule 1 is also satisfied because no other exotic or effect available to Warlocks provides the same infinite grenade energy. We also have a unique activation requirement by requiring a powered melee kill. For Rule 2, we have great synergy with our solar subclass. We have the Touch of Flame aspect that improves our solar grenade, and we have fragments like Ember of Searing that refunds melee energy after defeating scorched targets, which we'll be doing a ton of because solar nades do a lot of scorching and also a lot of killing. Melee energy refund equals more powered kills, which equals more infinite solar grenades. And as for emergent gameplay, our third rule, we have all these interesting gameplay mechanics to manage, like using grenade kills to heal ourselves, maintaining our powered melee cooldowns, creating ignitions, etc. Playing Sunbracer's Warlock is a really fun act of juggling cooldowns, all while blowing up an entire room with ignitions and scorch. And lastly, we have all of you Titan fans. Now, I'm personally not a Titan, so I don't have access to every Titan exotic, but I think my choice is pretty good, and it's also the only Titan exotic I personally use, the Loreley Splendor Helm. This exotic synergizes with our solar subclass and creates a sunspot at our feet when critically wounded or when casting a barricade. Sunspots give us greatly improved restoration. As with our last two exotics, Rule 4 is met with a pretty simple description. We just make sunspots when we're weak. Rule 1 is met because there's no other exotics that provide sunspots as a defensive effect, with Hallowfire Heart giving us an offensive sunspot variation. Of course, sunspots are a solar effect, and naturally synergize with solar fragments like Ember of Solace, giving us longer durations on restoration effects granted by sunspots, and it also synergizes with Sol Invictus, our Titan aspect, which damages enemies who are inside a sunspot. This satisfies our Rule 2 for the synergy requirement. All of our mechanics are combined to turn you into a close-range, unkillable tank that's constantly healing while applying tick damage to nearby enemies because of your sunspots. This isn't even counting other Sol Invictus effects, which creates even more sunspots on ability final blows. Titans with Loreley Splendor litter the battlefield with sunspots, leaving no enemy left in their wake. All three of these exotics are pretty commonly used since they are simple to understand, create fun and engaging gameplay loops, and also provide a really strong build to boot. Some may even call it meta. Some of these exotics even provide an opportunity to build craft on different subclasses or open the door for different build variations while using them. Assassin's Cowl is subclass agnostic, so in theory you could create a build with any subclass. Maybe a Strand Hunter Assassin's Cowl is fun here? Haven't tried it myself. Sunbracers could be turned into an offensive ignition machine or a supportive self-healing build depending on your fragments and mods. Loreley Splendor is a bit more restrictive, but you could play either offensively or defensively depending on how you set up your build. I also have a handful of other honorable mentions, such as Briarbinds, Abeyant Leap, Syntheseps, Fallen Sunstar, Omnioculus, and Radiant Dance Machines, among others. All of these satisfy my rules and are either commonly used for being fun, like Briarbinds, or really strong, like Omnioculus. Now we have some exotics that need to be analyzed for why they failed. Sorry if I end up mentioning your favorite exotic, it's not personal. I am also going to exclude any recently reworked exotics, and I'll be mentioning some of them a little bit later in the video. But hey, before we get to the bad stuff, why not drop a like and subscribe? We're almost at 200 subscribers, which is insane. And I've got some really great ideas in the works for more videos like this one, and you might like to catch those too. But without any further ado, here's some big failures in exotic armor design. Starting once again with hunters, we're going to look at everyone's favorite, Khepri's Sting. Oof. Khepri's Sting will automatically cast Smoke Bomb, our void powered melee, upon hitting an enemy with an unpowered melee, then granting us True Sight. We also have enhanced melee regeneration while Smoke Bomb is attached to a surface. Okay, Rule 4 is actually satisfied because the effect is easy enough to understand. Punch, go invis, gain True Sight. Is this a unique effect for Rule 1? Actually, yeah, for the most part. Automatic casting of our Smoke Bomb is unique, and at the time of release, Assassin's Cowl had not been released yet. True Sight also was unique at the time of release. But we're in Season 23, not Season 7. So now we have Assassin's Cowl for invis on punching, Omnioculus for enhanced melee refunds, and an aspect, Stylish Executioner, which just gives us True Sight anytime we defeat a void debuffed enemy. There's some power creep in here, of course, but What really ruins Kepri's Sting is the severe lack of emergent gameplay. Our gameplay loop is punch to go invis and see through walls. Wait for long cooldowns. That's a big yikes. We really put this exotic on to lose our smoke bomb, and we gain nothing of value from it in return. There's no real fun gameplay loop here, since we just go invis and then sit around for a while waiting for our cooldowns to come back. And we have to lean heavily into mods and fragments to make up for any of the exotic shortcomings. Skull of the Dire Ahamkara. Now that is a bad exotic, Warlocks. We simply gain additional damage resist while casting Nova Bomb. Funnily enough, Rule 4 continues to be satisfied. We just gain damage resist while casting our super. Subclass synergy? I guess, but there's really not much. We only have synergy because it procs when activating our void super. But that's it. No fragment or aspect synergy, no void keywords, nothing. Is it unique? I guess, kinda, not really. We already gained damage resist from armor mods, resilience, etc. Why would we need a little bit extra while casting a super? Emergent gameplay? There's none. This exotic provides nothing in terms of gameplay mechanics or build potential. It literally has no effect on your build, and at most it could be used for a hot swap when casting your super, but that's about it. And that's if you really want to figure out a use for it. I give it an S+ in being an example of a badly designed exotic. Alright, Titans. I mentioned it before, but we gotta talk about Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap. I'm just going to read the description word for word. Diamond lances create stasis crystals on impact when thrown, with more crystals created by hitting bosses and vehicles. While using a stasis subclass and behind your rally barricade, rapid precision hits and combatant final blows with a stasis weapon create a diamond lance near you. Huh? Couple things here. First, what's a diamond lance? Okay, they make stasis crystals, but now I need a barricade up, and I need to land precision hits to activate the other effect, and I need to be using a stasis weapon, and I make lances, and I do something with the lances. That's a lot to keep track of. It's not a great example of Rule 4. In fact, I would say it really doesn't hit the mark there unless you're a seasoned veteran to the game. And even then, it's a lot to take in. There's also not a ton of synergy with the stasis subclass. We get crystals, I guess diamond lances, but that's about it. I will give it that it provides unique gameplay, since you have to cower behind a barricade and land precision hits to make diamond lances instead of playing up close and personal like Titans like to do. And that's just it. This exotic's gameplay loop is boring and foreign to the class, not to mention just plain underwhelming in content of any difficulty. It provides nothing of benefit to the player, and it's difficult to understand. Maybe there's some emergent gameplay here with creating stasis crystals, but then you'd have to leave your barricade to collect them, which just removes one part of the activation requirement for making diamond lances. So then you got to run back to your barricade. Oops. These exotics are only hitting one or two of my rules, and even in the case of satisfying a rule, usually it's just the ease of understanding the effect, which is barely even an impact on the gameplay of the exotic. Gerfalcon's Halberg has a difficult description to understand. There's a lot going on there, but it provides such an engaging gameplay loop that it doesn't really matter. Rule 4 is more of a soft requirement that doesn't make or break a design, but the top 3 rules do. Skull of Ahamkara is easy to understand, but provides literally zero gameplay. If we're not hitting the top 3 rules, we've got a serious design problem. Not to mention that some effects are just power crept out of the game, like part of the problem with Kepri's Sting. But hold on, Bungie's starting to address power creep with exotic reworks. But it's kind of a mixed bag. Some reworks are amazing, and others, well, they made no impact, or at worst, it made the exotic worse. Apologies to Warlocks and Titans. I'm a Hunter main. So these 2 examples coming up are Hunter exotics, but hopefully it makes sense to you guys too. For a great rework, we could look at Foe Tracer. Foe Tracer's old perk did two things. First, it marked targets. Second, those marked targets took extra damage when at low health. There's not much going on here, but that's to be expected from a year one launch exotic. And because they don't have a lot going on, they fell out of use pretty quickly in favor of other exotics that provided more fun gameplay loops or more powerful effects. The new Foe Tracer addressed this issue while still maintaining the purpose of the original perk. Now, hitting a powerful target will grant you increased damage to weapons matching your subclass type, which ends up being a stronger effect than using 3 surge mods, 25% versus 20%, and it now synergizes with all of our subclasses by dropping an elemental pickup such as Tangles on Strand when defeating the marked target. Now that the design issues were addressed, all of a sudden we're seeing a resurgence in the usage of Foe Tracer. Most of this has been with Strand Hunter, which makes a lot of sense because of the interactions Whirling Maelstrom has with the exotic perk. Tangles, and by extension Maelstroms, sometimes count as ability damage, which procs the bonus damage perk from Foe Tracer. Now, that's a really good example of emergent gameplay. Nothing explicitly mentions this synergy, but it works really, really well and makes a very cohesive and, well, powerful build. Now, let's talk about a really sad rework, Sealed Ahamkara Grasps. On release, this exotic was very, very strong due to how fast you could dump heavy ammo into a target. The old perk simply reloaded your weapon upon dealing melee damage to a target. Sealed Ahamkaras were nerfed subsequently, adding a small cooldown between activations. This basically killed off Sealed Ahamkaras, and fast forward to this year, Bungie has tried to fix this. The new perk is in addition to the old perk and now reloads all your weapons when you defeat a target with a powered melee, as well as granting increased move speed and jump height afterwards as a bonus. Seems like a pretty good rework, right? Well, not so fast. For one, the cooldown period was never reverted, so it's basically still useless. But besides this, the all-weapon reload requires a powered melee kill, which is a pretty tall requirement, and also is not unique from another exotic, Dragon Shadow. Dragon Shadow reloads all weapons and gives a handling and reload bonus after dodging. No enter cooldown, and dodge cooldowns are super short anyway. And also, Dragon Shadow was released before Sealed Ahamkaras, so it wasn't unique at the time either. Not only did the rework not address the main issues with the exotic, but they also didn't add anything of value to it, so I'm hopeful that they'll take another stab at this one. Or maybe I should try to do it myself. Let me know down below if you want to see me make videos about how I would tackle reworking certain exotics, and also let me know which ones you want to see. Of course, personally, I want to take a good long look at Sealed Ahamkara Grasps. Anyway, Sealed Ahamkaras isn't the only bad rework. Raiju's Harness, Eternal Warrior, and Claws of Ahamkara are equally bad, among others. And you know something? I'm starting to see a pattern with Ahamkara-themed exotics being really, really bad. I mean, just look at what they did to my boy, Young Ahamkara's spine in PvE. It's bad now, boys. It's real bad. I think for reworks, Bungie should be taking a close look at why exotics are not providing meaningful gameplay additions in the first place, and then using the DNA of the exotic to turn it into something great, just like they did for Foe Tracer. Foe Tracer made you deal extra damage, and now you're still dealing extra damage, and they added some bonus effects on top of it that made it great. And by the way, Bungie, that means not just slapping a 4-time surge effect on and calling it a day. The surge on Foe Tracer made sense because the original perk also gave damage, but what the heck is the point in adding it to Eternal Warrior? Are you just trying to increase usage stats arbitrarily? It literally does nothing to tie in with the super augmentation effect the exotic already had. Bungie needs to evolve the perks, not make cookie cutter changes. We want exotics to tie in with a build or playstyle, not just make us do more damage. That's boring. Gameplay feel is king here in exotic land. We want exotics that create a playstyle. We want to juggle tons of Child of the Old Gods. We want to turn the battlefield into an ignition paradise. We want to be invisible assassins, taking out powerful enemies from the shadows. But hey, maybe all this is just my opinion. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you don't. Let me know down below. I'd love to hear what you think. Maybe there's a particular exotic that you think needs a desperate rework. And if you like the video, definitely hit that like button and subscribe. I'll be making more videos analyzing the design of Destiny, and I think you'll really like what I've got cooking. And also, don't forget to check me out on twitch.tv/Rozeki weeknights around 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern to play games with me and talk about Destiny design live. And hey, that's about it. I've been Rozeki. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.